Hey everyone, Mike Doloff, Chief Revenue Officer, Inflow Communications. Glad to be with you today on this episode we have of the good, bad, and ugly of our everyday customer experiences. And I've got with me a special guest, Chris Riccio from our team. Chris, say hi and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, Chris Riccio here with Inflow Communications. I'm ready to share my story today.
Awesome. Chris has got a good story. We're going to keep it positive today about healthcare and healthcare experience. So Chris, take it away, man, and we'll break this down afterwards.
Sure. You know, having had experience in the contact center and always being around contact center and the customer experience, I've shared this before. I'm pretty particular about the experiences that I have, but this is a really good experience. So I'm in a Southern California location, and I moved out to Palm Springs area about 3 years ago, and finding a healthcare provider was critical for me, just because you need one for everyday purposes, right? So one of the things that my healthcare provider does exceptionally well is really around the customer experience. And I've talked about this many times with many different other health providers and clients that I meet with. But in particular, the experience that I have is consistent every time I go to the doctor or have an interaction with the doctor. And I think one of the things I enjoy most is that I can call my doctor's office. I can email my doctor's office. There's a patient portal. And if I have an appointment or upcoming event, I get a text reminder before the appointment as well as after my appointment. There's full engagement from before I step in the door to the time I leave, even a couple of days after I leave. So it's an exceptional experience.
Love it. So cool to hear that. It's easy for us, we've talked about, it's easy for us to focus on the negative experiences. It's easy for us to be hypercritical too, because we live in customer experience contact center. So if having a good one to highlight is fantastic, because it's not this unattainable level that organizations can achieve. It certainly is attainable for small businesses, for large. So let's break down. We got a couple bullet points here we'll highlight of what makes this experience for Chris with his healthcare provider's doctor's office really great. So first bullet point, multiple channels. This is an important one that comes up on the good and on the bad and ugly side of it, the lack of channels. Multiple channels is important, right? Chris needs to pick up the phone and schedule something, he can do it. If he needs to email him, access a patient portal, he can do it. So that sort of not a traditional contact center omni-channel experience per se, but really important, really important to the customer, or in this case, patient, being able to access and have information flow between it. What's also interesting with healthcare is that contact center or customer experience is not just those sort of physically separated channels, but of course the in-person piece as well, right, which Chris has. So that all of those different interaction types have to be in sync and be available to customers. So that's point one, multiple channels. The second part, proactivity. This is really important for a lot of customer and patient experiences that we hear that are good. Getting those reminders, whether it's, hey, your appointment's coming up in an hour, or your appointment's coming up tomorrow, or things like, hey, it's cold and flu season, come by for a flu shot. Proactivity is really important. People expect this now. If you're paying money to a service provider, you're expecting them to be talking with you, telling you. And a lot of times it benefits the provider, right? They're also getting patients coming in, healthier patients, the ability to prevent problems in this case. So that kind of healthcare that a provider is going to want to have. But it's also more opportunity for them to, have appointments that hold. So again, good customer experience is typically win-win, right? This is good for the provider, and it's good for the patient, getting that proactive messaging. Everyone wins because of it.
Yeah, and if I can add some more there,
Please.
it's not just about I have full open-ended access to the staff as well. So the patient portal, I can actually communicate to my doctor directly. I usually get a response from the doctor within an hour. So if I have a question about medication, or maybe there's something that I had a question about when I was in the office, he'll respond in an hour. I can also talk to the nurse directly, or even if I'm trying to process my claim and get billing. There was an issue last year where I was getting reimbursement for some procedure, and I was able to communicate with the billing staff independent of having to go through the whole shebang of customer service and get filtered down a funnel. I was able to communicate directly with the different staff. So I get, that piece of communication just provides me so much value, because I don't have to worry about where I need to go and whether I'm going through a third party. I'm going right to the source. So that's really helpful. When I have an appointment, I do get reminders before the appointment, 48 hours before the appointment, but I also get annual checkup reminders. So you mentioned the flu shots. That comes up, hey, you might consider a flu shot. Or right now, the chickenpox vaccine, there's been a waiting list for the vaccine because almost everyone's sold out of it because, people of a certain age are just consuming it. So that I get reminders of that, and then annual things that are necessary as you age, like colonoscopy, things of that nature. Just friendly reminders of things. And really, what it comes down to for me is that I don't have to have this long list of to do because I know in part they're taking care of it proactively. So it's tremendously helpful as far as reminders, and they're very proactive. Some other nice to haves, I have a guaranteed commitment with my provider that because they've done all this work about getting me to the appointment and make sure I'm showing up for the appointment, there's a guarantee that I wait no longer than 5 to 10 minutes for the doctor to actually see me. In the past, I've been at a doctor experience where I not only waited 45 minutes in the waiting room, waited almost an hour in the actual patient room just to say hello. My facility now, within 5 to 10 minutes, I have someone taking my temperature, doing your typical check-in wait, and then I'm in the office waiting for the doctor. I usually never wait for him more than 10 minutes once I'm behind the door. So it's a great experience all the way around.
That's awesome. And again, it's good for the patient or the customer, good for the office as well. It's efficient on their end, right? Love that. That's a good segue actually into the next bullet point too, which is the customer journey is thought of and it's pervasive throughout. This has been thought of from beginning to end, and really there is no end, right? But from beginning of somebody signing up to become a new patient through that whole process, scheduling appointments, proactive communication. But I think this is what a really important point is. We talk about this. This is Chris Riccio's phrase, so 100% trademark to him, but it's no longer the four walls of the ACD, right? This customer experience isn't just interacting with the call center. A lot of times it's broader than that, right? It's the web experience. It's potentially that phone experience, chat experience, whatever, but it's also that experience in office, in this case for healthcare, and then post, right? What happens after that ability to reach out and talk. So a good customer experience thinks through that whole journey that somebody's navigating, and it's not siloing those things off. Like Chris said, I can reach out to billing. I'm not picking up from scratch. Whenever I reach out to somebody, I can get directed wherever I need to go. That's a huge, huge point of what makes this key. They've mastered the customer journey, thought through that from the customer's lens, not just what's good for the office, but what's good for the customer. And can you align those two? That's missing in a lot of organizations. So I think that's a huge, huge point here. What makes this a great experience?
Yeah, and I'll also say, my schedule tends to be very busy with work, and I'm always on phone calls, et cetera. So finding a quick minute to tend to personal things, because we all have personal things. If I have to pick up a phone to handle a transaction, I'm already annoyed. The fact that I can go right to a portal and digitally get a response through email or through text makes it so much more convenient for me. Again, if I have to pick up the phone to dialogue with somebody, it's just more time than I'd care to spend on something that to me should be a seamless transaction, such as, hey, where's my claim? What's the status? Things like that. So I think they have really well thought about it. If I pick up the phone, that's where I end up in the ACD, and then I'm just another digit behind a telephone system, and I don't want to be that. I want to be able to have access to my records, to my doctor, to the staff, and they've done an exceptional job. So I tell people about the Eisenhower Medical out here in Palm Springs all the time, just because they offer that service. It's fantastic. And then even some of the little things that they offer, if you go into the office, there is a coffee, tea, and water station, and they'll offer you a bottle of water. I mean, they look to make it convenient. And the time where I had to do a blood test, and that takes a little bit longer, I wouldn't say I waited more than 10 minutes during that time as well, and it's a different facility, but still associated. They have local news, and it's not news like Channel 4 news. It's local community updates. Hey, did you know information about what's happening down the street, and healthcare-related information, all about giving you the latest stats on, all the things that are happening in your community from a healthcare perspective. So the experience for me is always great.
I love it.
I can't say enough about how great the experience is.
That's the bonus, is those little things do matter, right? That's sort of the extra polish on the customer experience, the little things.
Oh, I've got one more to add.
Oh yeah, add it.
Yeah, we're talking about the little things. So if I have to get a prescription, I don't even take a piece of paper. I don't walk away with a piece of paper. My doctor says, okay, where do you choose to pick up your prescriptions? and I'll tell him the location, and he'll pull up the address, say this location, and he'll punch, and he'll send my prescription directly to the desk. All I have to do is show up and pick it up. So I'm not having to cart a piece of paper across with me. I mean, it's uber convenient. And, you know, to that point, I even go to the drive-thru to pick up my prescriptions.
Boom. Love it. Again, that whole journey. So I think that's a great example, Chris, of great customer experience in healthcare. And that's something from our everyday lives that we experience, that you certainly experience. So fantastic. Thank you for sharing it. To everybody tuning in, thank you so much for doing so. Please comment, share your stories with us. We'll highlight those and break those down and what makes them good, bad, or ugly. Have a great rest of your day.